Oh, this is getting interesting. Andrea Berta might be pulling off some rather interesting moves, and the people that have been telling you to panic and get angry, well, we've still got a month and some exciting things might be in the pipeline. Let's talk about it. Plenty more on that to come in today's Arsenal transfer show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day and have had a really good start to your week as well as we reach the end of it. It is now, of course, Friday. I feel like it's absolutely flown by this week. I kind of hope the rest of the summer flies by just as quickly as this week has, because then we'll be at the brand new season very quickly indeed. It's a very, very interesting scenario for Arsenal this summer, of course, and there's lots of different stories and news and happenings going on, and we're going to talk about that and plenty more as well in today's show. So good morning to you all. Join us in the chat box. We've got Black Shine and Orin. We've got Somta. We've got Die. Sorry, I've got hiccups this morning. We've got Die. We've got Jamil. We've got Ashley. We've got Martin. We've got Mike. Tom. Other Tom. Andy. Jonas. Jamrock. We've got Sean. We've got Simple Unity. We've got Glenn and Kirill and Spearman and James and Joe. Thank you to you all. Really appreciate everybody listening. Do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend as well. And next week, of course, there's a few more shows. You got tomorrow, you got Sunday, you got Monday, and then I'm off in Canada. There's a couple of pre-recorded episodes, and then we're going to be taking a break. Of course, if anything big happens, I will be around to record a little video and put it out, of course, as well. Sorry to those that have been really hit by the StreamYard cutoff point for some reason. It really does. It's absolutely ruthless in how it cuts people out at the beginning. I don't know why it does that, but I do apologize for something. It is entirely out of my control. We will start with a story that is just broken, courtesy of Gunner Blog, of course, friend of the show, James McNicholas, on The Athletic, who has just tweeted this story of what we discussed yesterday. Arsenal are interested in 19-year-old Konstantinos Karetsas, the Greek youth player, playing for Genk currently, and I think the Greek senior side as well. He's been very impressive. We talked about this story. Came out of Greece, this story, but appears... not appears. It does have relevance to it. Arsenal do have an interest in the player. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and as I said to you in the morning show, you may remember if you listened into yesterday's show, I did a little bit of digging around this story and didn't get the pushback that I was kind of expecting around this. And naturally, I think that's led to more digging by plenty of those that are interested. Harry Simeon did a fantastic show on his channel on the Chronicles of a Gooner. If you've not yet watched that, I recommend you go and do that. But yes, this is an interesting one. I will say to you that did I say 19? Sorry, 17. I will say to you that I would still be very surprised if this happens. I would be very surprised if this deal happens. I get the sense that there's kind of interest in the player, and there's a sense and a feeling that he is a very exciting talent, but that I think there is a feeling at Arsenal that they want to sign players that are going to get them something now, this season. And that's what James is saying here. He says, can Arsenal strike the balance between win now players and development signings? Because I talked to you yesterday about this balance that they do need to find, because it's not just about next season. Arsenal need to sign players that are also going to be important for the years to come. It's not just about who the manager is right now. It's not just about who the squad is right now. It's not about this. It's about making sure that you've got a long-term vision, that you are succeeding in the now, but also making sure that you have that depth of quality and you can bring in those top quality signings for the future. So I would be surprised if this happens, but the interest from Arsenal, as of course James is breaking here, is very, very much real in the player. But that is just, as I say, I'd be surprised if this did go down. But yeah, it's an interesting story. He's an interesting player. He's one, of course, you can get some insight on from Harry, who covered this on the Chronicles of a Gooner channel. So go and give it a watch. But let's move on to today's slides, shall we, before the news that broke so early this morning. Yesterday, Spain played France as international football gets underway. For those of you that have been starved of any action since the Champions League final, well, a crazy game was played out between France and Spain. Spain winning in a 5-4 victory over France. Nico Williams, Mikel Merino, Lamine Yamal scored 2, including a penalty, and Pedri on the score sheet. But what was crazy about this is that Spain took a 4-0 lead in this game, courtesy of Williams, Merino, Yamal, and Pedri. However, we saw then a bit of a comeback from France. It went 4-1 with Kylian Mbappe scoring a penalty of his own, and then a goal from Lamine Yamal made it 5-1. But then Rayan Cherki, Manchester City's expected summer signing, scored. Then Danny Vivian scored an own goal. And then Randall Kolo Muani made it very interesting on the 93rd minute as he made it 5-4. But what was really crucial about this game was, if you've seen Mikel Merino's goal, you will see the combination between Merino and Martin Zubimendi. It's a fantastic pass from the Spanish midfielder through to Mikel Merino, who played a 1-2 to then find himself through on goal and finished with his right foot in excellent clinical style. It's not really something we necessarily associate with Merino, with his right foot shooting abilities. But Spain have really ran with this kind of ability of Merino's now to play so far up the field, courtesy, of course, of what Mikel Arteta has done with him this season. And I really do think that fans overlook Mikel Merino quite significantly, that he's just not viewed as a really kind of significant piece of business by Arsenal. Mikel Merino adds a lot of depth, experience, and quality to a number of positions now for Arsenal, and he is an option for us. So that, and I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, look at Ryan Cherki getting a goal for France." The guy that's already at Arsenal getting a goal for Spain in their win over France, helped by the guy who is, of course, on his way to Arsenal this summer in Martin Zubimendi. But it seems like Arsenal fans are getting more excited about players that are going elsewhere, the players that they've already got, and the ones that are expected to arrive at the club as well. It's odd. It's very, very odd. I can't quite get my head around it, but it's just this inferiority complex I think so many of us have got. Anyway, moving into the transfer window, and Andrea Berta is looking to improve his team from the looks of things. And not just, of course, the team when it comes to Arsenal, but also the team when it comes to the recruitment. Now, of course, Arsenal lost Jason Ato at the end of the year. And now Juventus' former head of scouting and Granada director, Matteo Tognozzi, is currently in advanced talks to sign for Arsenal, according to Fabrizio Romano. He would therefore become part of the team with Andrea Berta at Arsenal. And he is looking to improve that team so that, of course, they have more efficient workings with what's going on. Now, James Ellis is currently the head of scouting at Arsenal, unless I am mistaken, and he's left. I know there are some reports suggesting James Ellis had moved on, but they were quickly rubbished from what I heard. And that wasn't the case, unless that's changed in recent weeks. But it does seem, of course, that Andrea Berta is looking to expand that team with Matteo Tognozzi arriving at Arsenal potentially, as they're in talks for him to join up with the club. And I think this makes sense. You want him to have more familiarity. You want to have him joined by familiar faces who are going to be more efficient in how they're working, how they're recruiting for Arsenal. So, yeah, this is an exciting one. Of course, it looks as though Andrea Berta, of course, is not just looking to expand his team of people that would help in recruitment, but also the players as well. He's progressing on multiple fronts. My understanding is he's in talks with a number of potential targets for Arsenal this summer as they look to try and strengthen the team. And those targets seem to be expanding in number, because we've got another report that came out from Sky yesterday that Arsenal are informed about the £5 million release clause to sign Kepa Arrizabalaga. Of course, he spent the last season on loan with Bournemouth from Chelsea. This makes a lot of sense. I mean, Kepa as a keeper, he's decent, he's okay, he's not brilliant. He's perfect for a number 2 slot. Is Kepa perfect for a number 2 position in this Arsenal team? And for £5 million, it's absolutely a no-brainer, I think, for Arsenal. It saves Arsenal 20-odd million quid when it comes to signing Juan Garcia. But Kepa Arrizabalaga, of course, who's now 30 years of age, absolutely fine to be an Arsenal number 2. He's been number 2 at Real Madrid, of course, working behind Thibaut Courtois. It doesn't need to be a position that is filled by a top keeper. We've already gone through that kind of scenario. Just having a backup who is decent, it makes sense, So I don't think really anyone has got too many reasons to be against the idea of dropping a pittance on a Premier League proven goalkeeper, to be fair. Moving, though, into the other outfield transfers and more claims surrounding Rodrygo. It looked for a while like this was something that was kind of done, dead, over. Lots of reports out from Spain last week that he decided to remain at Real Madrid. Arsenal's interest is well documented in Rodrygo. We've known about it for some time. We've known about the fact that they have been very keen on the player, that they've been looking out for a potential market opportunity and see Rodrygo as potentially that. Of course, Xabi Alonso is going to be critical, of course, in everything that goes on around the club. But it should be pointed out, of course, as well, that managers at Real Madrid don't tend to have kind of these key says. It usually is Florentino Perez who turns out to be the leading figure, the leading candidate in any decision, way beyond the power of the manager at Real Madrid. And you kind of get what you're given when you're coach of Real Madrid. So if Arsenal are able to kind of put in an offer that tempts Real Madrid into selling, whether or not Xabi Alonso wants to keep Rodrygo, who knows? But more claims yesterday, loads of kind of reports swirling around. There's a report from Sky before others also reported news around Rodrygo as well. And that's because there's been kind of a broader audit, if you like, around Arsenal's wide targets and attacking targets, because Morgan Rogers has also now been mentioned by Sky as a potential target for the club during this upcoming window. I would be a big fan of this signing if Arsenal could get it done, but I really don't see how Aston Villa are going to ask for nothing less than a big fee. He's obviously still under contract, I believe, at the club for the foreseeable future, down to 2030. His contract runs with Aston Villa. He's rated very highly, only 22 years of age. He's English and homegrown, of course, as well. And so for that reason, he would cost even more money, but it would be a really, really good signing if Arsenal were able to land Morgan Rogers. I personally don't know of the legitimacy behind the claims, but there's been a fair few reports surrounding Morgan Rogers and interest from Arsenal, of course, as we've mentioned before. I wrote a piece about a month ago about Andrea Berta and how you would probably be prepared to expect a lot of links this summer. And that is exactly proving to be true. And also mentioned in these reports is the West Ham forward who has been linked with Arsenal since his times at Ajax, and that's Mohammed Kudus. Mohammed Kudus also talked about. Chelsea seem to be the most keen right now and have said to have been in talks with West Ham, potentially offering players in return for Mohammed Kudus, who is open to a move to get Champions League football for next season. He didn't have the best of campaigns last year, Mohammed Kudus. He really fell off kind of the radar, but West Ham were in general pretty terrible. I remain a fan of Kudus. He's a player I've had a lot of time for. He's only 24 years of age. Last season, 5 goals, 4 assists. It wasn't his best season by any stretch of the imagination. But if he can pull off, some of the numbers that we've seen from him before that, when, of course, he's been playing for perhaps better sides like Ajax, but the season before he got 18 goals and 10 assists for West Ham. That was not the season they won the UEFA Conference League. It's worth pointing out, of course, because he signed after they won the UEFA Conference League. In his last season for Ajax, he scored 18 goals and got 7 assists, and he translated those numbers. But last season was a really bad year for West Ham, and Mohammed Kudus obviously fell off, as did a lot of other players who had been impressing for the Hammers previously. So I wouldn't rule him out just because of that one-off season that West Ham had that he was obviously involved in. I think he would be a pretty smart piece of business by Arsenal, but only if they can get him for a reasonable figure. And I'd look at that reasonable figure being between 40 and 50. I wouldn't really want to go much higher than that. But he is a player who I like a lot. I would love to see at Arsenal potentially one day in the future. Right, let's go to part 2, shall we? Some of your questions and more right after this. Right, let's move to part 2 of today's show. We're going to be jumping into the chat box, tackling some of your questions and tackling some of your thoughts. So if indeed you've got some questions that you'd like to ask, now is the time to do it. Let's jump into the chat, shall we? And tackle some of these feelings. Right. Errol says, no chance that we are signing. We are signing the Real Madrid player, according to the main man, no contact with his player at the moment. Of course, Ritza Romano, I think, reporting that this morning around Rodrygo, that despite these kind of claims, no talks have been initiated as of yet surrounding Rodrygo, which is pretty much what we've expected. You know, if Arsenal are going to sign Rodrygo, that's not going to be a deal that happens quickly. That's going to be a deal that takes time. That's going to be a deal that takes a lot of negotiations, a lot of work to get done. So I wouldn't expect a quick turnaround on that deal, but the transfer window is a weird place, as we all know. Oslo says, you don't think Hein or that other young keeper that we signed could be a backup? They could, but Kepa is better than those two. It's probably worth pointing out. Temi says, Berta's first signing should be Howard Webb. Alex, thank you so much for the kind donation. Says, Tom, I'm not sure if you've ever tried poutine before. So here's a little contribution from me and you to the wife to try it. Enjoy the holiday. I have tried it. I tried it when I was in the States a couple of years ago, but I am very much looking forward to trying it in its natural habitat. So thanks, Alex, for the kind tip. But absolutely, you've only reaffirmed my excitement to get some poutine next week and the week after, while I indeed am in Canada. And by the way, I've had a fair few people message me. Of course, we've got a lot of Canadian listeners, which I absolutely love. Thank you so much for all the kind support, kind words you've been sending through. Unfortunately, I can't have a kind of, I'd love to have done like a meetup, but we've got a lot of plans and we're on the move like all the time. We're like doing a big kind of road trip scenario. So I'm not in the same place for a long enough period of time to have the time set aside to do something like that. But thank you so much for the kind words. If I see you, come and say hello by all means, absolutely. But I can't do like an organized kind of meetup thing. I would have loved to, but we're just with how we're moving around everywhere. We're staying in like 6-7 different places over the course of these 2 weeks. So I would have loved to have done that, but we have a packed itinerary, a very strict order of activities to stick to. And says, as an old guy, I'm new to this YouTube content creator stuff. Are fans always this antsy and impatient, or is this a new thing? Why is it? Is it because of last season? Is it because of the previous windows? So, and as someone who's been doing this for a little while, you know, the last 8 years we've been doing this channel, for the last 3 years we've been doing these 8 a.m. shows. It's a relatively new thing to see it this early on in the window. Usually there's like an element of common sense that perpetuates through the fan base. I think the frustrations of the last season, the fact that we didn't win anything, and also I think the fact that obviously Liverpool and Chelsea and Man United have already confirmed at least one signing. That obviously has changed things. I think also the Zubimendi situation has something to do with this. Had the Zubimendi scenario not emerged in January and instead come out like last week, and it was going to be a case of Arsenal was set to sign Zubimendi, I think the sentiment around how Arsenal were doing their business would be different, despite the irony, of course, that Arsenal have already been working extremely hard early on, months before the window opens, of course, to land a very key target in Zubimendi for this upcoming summer transfer window. There's going to be news, maybe today, that makes you really, really happy, of course, as well. And that there's going to be evidence, of course, that there's progress being made at Arsenal, that things are moving in a really positive direction. But the noise, the anger, the frustration, the bare rawness of some of people's kind of pessimism and frustration and finger pointing, and I could go on, is way beyond what I have known before. I've got to the point now where I just end up laughing at some comments or just leaving the date below some comments, because it really does kind of point to just how mad some people have already got about where we are. If Arsenal do their business, and I'll say this every day until it gets in people's minds, as long as Arsenal get their key priority business done before they fly to Asia on their pre-season tour, then they have done their business early. That's all that matters. We've got 40 odd days to get this business done, to get priority deals done. If some like little deals later on, like a backup defender, like a backup keeper, maybe a little cherry on top as a market opportunity later on the window, fine. But as long as they get the centre forward, the defensive midfielder, and hopefully kind of a wide player in these next 40 plus days, then great. Absolutely fantastic. That as long as our priority business is done in that period of kind of time, I'm happy. If it's not, that's when we can have some really serious conversations about is this happening efficiently enough? Are we doing a good enough job in the market? Are we being proactive enough? Are we struggling? If we get to the preseason tour and those things are struggling to happen, absolutely we can start having those conversations. Absolutely we can start being concerned. But until that point, it's really simple. It's really simple, and no one should be getting angsty at this point. They really shouldn't. Orange Juice says, make the countdown. I would, but it's pretty pointless because I'm not going to be here for a couple of weeks. So it wouldn't be as impactful. Maybe when I'm back, we'll do a countdown, and we'll change that every day. Nicholas says, Tom, remember when we were all fawning over Zoboslai when he was still at RB Salzburg? How time flies. Looking forward to another exciting season. I know. It's just, that's the fickleness of kind of content creation and covering things. And there are players, of course, I've wanted at Arsenal for a long time that had end up going elsewhere. It's best not to get hung up on individual players. It rarely ever goes the way that you want it to. Punfi says, did you hear that we are signing Kepa as a backup? We're currently in talks activating a 5 million release clause. We're not activating a 5 million release clause at the moment. Arsenal had talks to be informed on what the release clause was. We don't know if they're activating it yet, but there's interests for sure. But no, Arsenal aren't doing that deal as of yet. They're just being informed on the deal as it is. H-Town Rocket says, I'm not panicking, but the quality of our potential signings are so much lower than everyone else. Imagine comparing Leroy Sané and Sesko to Mbeumo and Cunha. I mean, Sané, there's interest, of course. Cunha's already come in, and Mbeumo would be a good signing for United. I think to say that Sesko, of course, is not up there with those two, I think he does a disservice quite considerably to Sesko. But Leroy Sané, if he was to come in, I would have my criticisms of that deal. I don't think that's the right avenue to go down. And obviously, it's worth pointing out, and again, I need to highlight this point so you really get it clear. When you see these links to players, and there's going to be a lot of them, I told you a few weeks ago, you're going to see a lot of links to players this summer, more than you've ever seen before. And we're starting to see that. Kepa and, if we go from back to front, kind of we had so far, Arsenal, of course, tried to sign Dean Housen at the start of the window. Obviously, his preference was to go to Real Madrid, but they wanted to sign Dean Housen. They had talks about signing Dean Housen and couldn't do it. Kepa appears to be another goalkeeper that they're interested in. Home Garcia, of course, another goalkeeper that Arsenal were interested in previously and held that interest, but he's changed his kind of stance this summer. In midfield, we know that Martin Zubimendi is all but done and expected to arrive. Arsenal have had interest in Ebery Eze, now Morgan Rogers, now Mohammed Kudus. Now, of course, they've been linked to several centre forwards like Isak previously and now Gyökeres and Sesko. Hugo Ekitike's name has come to the fore as well. Nico Williams has been talked about. Rodrygo, we know, is a very keen player. Karetsas, the young 17-year-old. There's a lot going on at Arsenal. There's a lot of talks going on at Arsenal. And Andrea Berta is very busy doing all of that. So this idea that Arsenal aren't moving, I think people need to screw their heads on a little bit tighter. Dodge says, we have a chance to get Gyökeres or Sesko, but typically we're dragging our heels. No, we're not. Nike says, what do you think of Barcola and Zubimendi's performances yesterday? I didn't see Barcola or Zubimendi's performances because I didn't watch the game. I try and really detach from football outside of my daily 9 to 5 and when I'm at the game. So I didn't watch it. I saw the little clip of Merino's goal, courtesy of Zubimendi, but you'll know better than me what the performance was like, because I wasn't watching. Dad RS says it's probably somewhat to do with the whole Watkins deal. Fans are worried Arsenal act too slow and then lose over a few million. Oh, it's quite a fair few millions with Watkins. Villa, of course, wanted a much bigger fee than Arsenal were willing to hand in. Aman says, what are your expectations for Calafiori next season? I see him being a crucial part in us reaching our peak. Yeah, me too. I think that, if he can stay fit, he'll be a really critical part of this team and offer Arsenal rotation, offer Arsenal differences, offer Arteta a different type of player. That's obviously something that we need to be looking out for moving forward. Let's go to Paul, who says, do you remember the fan meltdown when they thought Man City was... Oh, can you imagine that? I remember when those Man City reports came out about signing Declan Rice. Oh, the fan base went into utter hysterics, only to be shown up to be absolute fools days later. It's just, Arsenal fans are a real glutton for punishment. They love it. They love being embarrassed time after time after time. It is crazy. Elliot says, if we can bring in Rodrygo, I can accept Sesko. And as a Canadian, I hope you have a great time here. Will you be in Toronto? I won't be in Toronto. I'm doing the west side, so not the east side. And for those, of course, affected by the fires at the moment over there in Eastern Canada, my thoughts are with you, and I'm hoping everybody is safe and sound as much as feasibly possible. Adam says, tuning in live from California. Keep doing what you're doing, Tom. Appreciate the hard work. Thank you, Adam. Very kind of you indeed. Jonas says, Tom, would you consider Kefren Turam or Quentin Timber as alongside Zubimendi? Only if Partey leaves. Yes. I think either of those two would be very decent additions if Partey was to leave, particularly Quentin Timber. I do like him. He's not necessarily a number 6 out and out, can play there, kind of more a box-to-box, but I do like Quentin Timber. I think it'd be interesting to see him paired again with his brother for the first time, really, in kind of a senior level at least. Ajmal says, City have Xavi Simons as a backup for Cherki. Is Simons the kind of player that we should be looking at to provide depth in attacking midfield? Can we rely on Waneri for the entire season? I think that he's a player that Arsenal have previously held interest in, but it's kind of died away more recently. I think the price tag is quite considerable as well. The priorities are not the attacking midfield right now. Arsenal's priorities lie the wide positions, defensive midfield, of course, with the Zubimendi deal, and the centre forward position. So, as I've mentioned, an attacking midfielder would be more of a cherry on top of a cake, making a 9 out of 10 window a 10 out of 10 window. So let's hope for it for sure. But yeah, let's wait and see what happens. Moving forwards and moving ahead to some of your other questions. In fact, just quickly, Chunk has said, any chance I can get a birthday shout out on today's show? Of course you can, Chunk. Happy birthday, my friend. Have an absolutely fantastic day. I hope you enjoy yourself. A2 says, how is City able to buy some quality players for what seems a reasonable price, considering all the clubs know how much money they have? A Wolves left back comes in. I mean, what's his name? Ait Nouri is coming in. The price tag for Ait Nouri appears to be, let's have a look what's being reported regarding Ait Nouri. Here we go on that. It's 57 million euros for Reinders, and Ait Nouri is costing, come on, I swear it was tweeted yesterday. No, still not got that. Here it is. 40 million euros. I mean, Ait Nouri, in terms of kind of making that switch, 24 years of age. His contract with Wolves runs out in 2026. So I don't think it's necessarily like a wildly low fee at all, really. Ait Nouri's a decent player. I wouldn't say he's a brilliant player. He's a very decent player. I don't see that as necessarily a wild signing. Reinders coming in for about £50 million again. That's probably about what he is worth. So, yeah, I don't really think it necessarily that's a wild, like it's wild that they're costing those kind of figures. I think that's about right for what they are worth in the window. Jaden, thank you for the kind donation. Watching live from Seattle, Washington. How do you think the Premier League and football overall can become more popular in the States? I mean, it's growing, of course, in the States all the time. Football in the States is becoming a very regular attraction. Of course, the preseason tours that happen, the Club World Cup that's over there, the World Cup that's coming to Canada, the United States, and Mexico, of course, is going to help massively. but it's already on the rise. It's already a massive sport. I think it's overtaken actually football or soccer, a number of sports that were kind of, endemic to the United States, really. So absolutely, I think these things are going to continue to grow. I think the sport is going to continue to grow as well. But very, very interesting. Very interesting to see kind of how the sport does grow in kind of this state, if you like, in this state of play. So, and this, I say state, it's a kind of apt word, of course, to discuss this. Jorgen says, "What's in the boxes behind you on the?" I mean, nothing exciting. There's like shirts, football shirts, pro Arsenal programs. Nothing really that exciting. I'm afraid nothing that would, nothing that's going to make you particularly, really, really excited indeed about that. But yeah, I'm just checking up on something. I'm trying to scroll. Someone's telling me some people are doing some. I don't have to describe this as I'm talking about. You'll know what I mean shortly. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. People are breaking things. Okay. Michael says, but come on, Tom, Man City does seem to always get good players at very good prices. Remember how much they bought Haaland for? Yeah, I mean, Haaland was a release clause. So I'm not surprised they got him for the price they got him for at all. Sharif says, hi, Tom. Love your show. Perfect start to the day. What do you think? There is a small pool of forwards to choose from, coated to previous years. Personally, I think Sesko is the next big thing. It is a small pool of forwards, and I agree with you, Sharif. I think Sesko is absolutely the correct signing to make during this window over Gyökeres from a personal point of view. I just think there's more potential. There's more potential goals in him at Arsenal than there is from Gyökeres, but I know that other people are vehemently of the other opinion. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Charlie says, do you have any vintage Arsenal shirts? If so, what one's your favourite? A few. I was very, very lucky to be gifted the blue lightning bolt kit from 1990. I want to say 95, I think. Arsenal 1995 away kit. Yeah, 1995. Morgie, our very, very dedicated listener, and very kindly gave me a 1995 away shirt, which was very, very kind of indeed. And it was very hard to turn that down. But yeah, that's among others kind of classic home shirt, maybe the 92, the 93 home shirt, I think. So yeah, a couple of them. A couple of kind of retro ones. Jasper says, I think an attacking midfielder is a must. Odegaard's poor season last year, and if he gets injured again, Arteta has shown he doesn't want to play when there. I mean, he's not shown he doesn't want to play him there. I don't get this. I mean, just what we've seen so far means nothing really. It's just an indication. Things change very quickly. People were saying that Waneri wasn't getting enough minutes, and then he made 30 appearances last season. So things change very quickly. So I always think we should try to avoid speaking in absolutes. Julian says, just read a source on Twitter saying that Sesko has made himself available until 2030, implying that talks are going well. News broken by the same journalist who broke Calafiori. Most Wanted says, will you be happy with 3 signings this summer? No, absolutely not. We need at least 5. AG says, Sesko is a prospect. Rodrygo is a game changer with experience. He truly I don't like this idea of calling Sesko a prospect, because at the end of the day, Sesko is not just a player that is going to improve what we already have. He's not already just a very good centre forward at this point in time. He's also somebody that can improve, can develop, can get better. Calling him a prospect, I think, is doing him a disservice. Rodrygo is, more of a finished article. Absolutely. He's got a couple more years on Sesko, having played at the highest level for a number of years already, won the biggest trophies. But let's wait and see what happens. Oliver says, have you seen Nico Shea report about Sesko agreeing a 5-year deal? I haven't. I can't say that I have seen too much reliability in a breaking of stories from a particular source. Richard says, apparently the King of Brazil is announcing his extension today. Is he? People like to break things. Cross Junkie says, I have 95 away with Stefan Schwartz on the back. Dude says Barcola is said to be available for 42 million. Spurs, Arsenal, and Chelsea are interested. We can't let Spurs rob him from us. I would love Barcola at Arsenal. I'd hate to see him go anywhere else, especially if he was going for £42 million. That would be absolutely brilliant if Arsenal were to get their hands on Barcola. Young King says, who is that determines someone's ceiling? I think it's not down to anyone to determine it. It's down to the player to achieve it. But we can get a good idea from what they're doing. You can get a good idea and extrapolate from the numbers that they're putting in across particular kind of predictive metrics, if you like. So plenty to look at. Right, I've got to go because I've got to write a story. Right, have a fantastic day, people. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Have an enjoyable Friday and evening. I'll be back with you tomorrow. And as always, I'll be Arsenal.